What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Talking about stewardship, there's ownership, there's ego versus trust. I want to make sure you finish that thought out because somebody might be checking the box right now. Going, he only did two. I want to know the rest.
I have two others to share. The other one that I present, of course, it's something that is very popular, which is psychological safety. The capacity to speak up, for people to speak up, because you have to work on the ego of the boss, of course, but at the same time you have to let the good ideas flow, information arise, from wherever they come. So it complements, those two things complement each other. And the third one is the willingness to help your teammates, the commitment to make the team successful, to help others grow. You probably remember the Chicago Bulls team with Michael Jordan, right? Back in the day. And probably you remember that at first, Michael Jordan was a phenomenal player, and they
amazing athlete, one of the tops in the field, right?
Yeah, they won lots of games, but they did not win championships.
That's right.
And the coach at the time said, let's play with Mike or for Mike. So everybody was passing the ball to Mike, and Mike was scoring, etc. But the team did not win championships. And then this new coach comes along and says, you know what? Why don't we reverse this? Why don't we make Mike play for the team? And now Mike becomes a teacher. Now Mike becomes an enabler. Now Mike becomes somebody that shares knowledge, and of course, demands performance. And when Mike plays for the team, they start winning championships. So this fourth element, I was saying, ownership, truth versus ego, psychological safety, and have the willingness to make others flourish, genuine, willingness to help your teammates, creates a positive reinforcement system where you can place whatever create ideas you have and start, creating value. And of course, making sure that the context does not get in the way to achieve your goals. So I describe that in the book at more length.
Yeah, I love that. And so I have to hit on the subject because I wish we'd blocked 4 hours for this conversation, but we don't have time for it. But there's something else because it's the name of the book. It's not growth, right? It could have been, but we all want growth. You called it regrowth.
Yeah.
What's the motivation behind that? I think I know what it is, but I want to hear your perspective.
All of us, let me start in the individual perspective. As life happens and we perform, we typically, evolve and get better and grow. But at some point in time, everybody stagnates. Everybody hits a wall. Organizations, individuals. Growth is not a 45-degree ascendant line that happens all the time. Sometimes you hit plateaus. Sometimes, things happen that are beyond your control that forces you to evaluate. So
yeah, we're not going to talk about COVID again, are we?
Yeah. So if you have a long-term perspective on yourself or your company, it's not about growth all the time. It's about regrowing when things get difficult. And you see, every company has slumps. Every person has, challenges. But the thing is, how can I use this to my benefit so that I can regrow once I hit that wall? So, and my book is called Regrowth, and it says how organizations can overcome stalling by unlocking their people's potential.
Yeah. See, and I love that because what you're talking about, Tom Wininger is, I'd like to share one of my quotes because my coach says, Mike, share your quotes as much as you can, but I got to go back to him. He was a global leader, was a management consultant on an international basis. And I remember meeting Tom and interviewed him at one of my early interviews. And he says it's the future of your company resides in the energy of its people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
I love that.
and you know what? When you plan for in my case, what I try to lay out is a transformation journey, right? My book is comprised with 8 chapters. First 7 chapters are devoted to organizations. Uh, starting with this mandate to grow and how they, go about doing that. Uh, and the last one, it's about personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
called self-led individual growth. And I describe a framework which consists of valves, because I really think that life is not really necessarily a switch, turns on and off. It's more like a valve. So
Mm-hmm.
you open a valve or you close it a little bit so you can play and equalize what you have to do. So at the end, I decided that I was gonna be vulnerable, and I present 8 transformation stories of myself.
Mm.
The most important transformation stories, personal and in the job, and how I was able to overcome stagnation
Yeah.
when I hit the wall.
Is there a short one of those 8 that you could share with us now?
Sure, let me share one real quick. When I was appointed to the position of CHRO for this large company, before that, I used to manage business. I'm not really an HR person myself. I've been doing HR for the last maybe 10 years or so, but before that, I really operated large companies. One of them, it was $1.3 billion, so in revenue. So I was, doing all those things. And all of a sudden, at some point, the CEO thought it would be a good idea to say, well, the trenches, you've been, operating, you know what it takes to win in the market. Why don't you go to the staff position, and help us understand how we can create this soft wiring, with people so that the company perform better. I say, you know what? Sure, that's a very nice challenge. I'll do it. So I got, named into the position, and I said, you know what, but I have to be honest, I'm not really expert in HR. Don't worry, we'll take that, care of that. So they helped me participate in lots of sessions all over the world with, top 10 universities, with HR programs and meetings. And, I went to all the big names that you can imagine. And in the process, I've met about 400 to 500 CHROs of large companies all over the world. And, it started to create a conflict in me, that I say, you know what? I'm not an HR guy. I don't
Mm.
belong in this turf.
Imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I thought, you know what? I know, I see how they perform. I know I come from a different, you know what? This is not going to work. This is not going to work. I made a big mistake. But I couldn't say, sorry, I made a mistake. I need my job back. So I went to my office one day, and I was really, really frustrated and a lot of anguish. Say, you know what? I don't belong in this category. And all of a sudden, I had a problem with my identity. And all of a sudden, I had a switch in my mind. Said, well, what if instead of me being the CHRO guy for this company, what if I am the innovation guy in charge of HR for this company? What if I switch and I say, now I am going to be the innovation person that happens to be in charge of HR?
Mm. So
What kind of
you reframed it.
I reframed my identity, and all of a sudden, wow, no, avenues of opportunity just came along. Yeah, I can really innovate in this space. I can really make changes. And all of a sudden I started working on that. And I also talked to my team. So kind of the lesson here, talk to my team to share that idea, say, guys, this is me from now on. This is my new identity. I am the innovation person in this company that happens to be in charge of HR. So I would ask you to help me, do my job better.
Mhm.
And in doing that, we found new ways of addressing, several challenges. And that identity change helped me get out of the slump. At least in my mind, I was not going to be able to perform. But all of a sudden, it turned out to be okay. And with the help of my team, we devised several development programs and cultural initiatives that were very successful. And I really credit that reframing of my identity to be able to perform better.
Yeah, here's the byproduct that came out of that, Ernesto, is that through that reframing process, what you did is you shifted from leader to steward.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing you say. You shifted from leader to steward. And, as you were saying that, I started thinking about um, those of us who are leading a team of people and somebody is not maybe performing up to their potential. Is there something that we can do with them to help them reframe maybe the way that they're looking at themselves or the role that they're in, or something along those lines, from like the salesperson who's not a good prospector, they're more of a farmer. And a lot of systems, a lot of environments, they would be sub-tier, right? Right, because the prospector is the door knocker and the farmer is sort of the account manager. But can you reframe that farmer, right, to look at their role and the value that they're bringing of what they're doing, to look at their role that's a little bit different in the sales process?
You ask a very important question, and one that has, I present that also in my book. And to answer that question, I'm going to quote James Taylor, the singer.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm a big admirer and fan of James Taylor for many, many years. And I don't know if you know about this, but he, of course, he's a very, very important talent. But at some time in his career, he had a problem with addictions. And he was, really, really affected by addiction for some time. And I was watching an interview uh, that somebody was making to him, and they were asking him, how did you come out from that addiction phase, and now you retook your career and now you're blossoming? And he said something that is very, very important that I learned a lot. He said, you know what? I learned that uh, if you want to change, it's not the same wanting to change and not knowing how, that knowing that you have to change, but in the bottom of your heart, not wanting to. Because if somebody wants to change but doesn't know how, well, I can help. I can really be supportive. I can help you, grow that. But if you're not, you say you want to change, but in the bottom of your heart, you don't want to, I cannot do anything right there. So
Yeah.
one of the first things that I always, ask my people that work with me is, you want to, I mean, if they're facing a challenge and they are frustrated, in what is your situation, right? Is it that you don't know how to? I can help you there. But do you really, really want to, do what it takes to overcome this problem? Because many times I've found that people simply don't want to do it.
Yeah, I was talking with one of my clients yesterday. We're talking about an issue they're dealing with. And so there's three things when you're looking at trying to grow and develop somebody. First of all, do they have the skill and the talent that's needed? If they don't have it, then there's not much you can offer training,
Yeah.
because that's number two. Is if do they have the skill or talent capability? Number two, do they have the knowledge or the training or what's needed? Because if they've got the talent and they've got the training and they still are not performing, the only question that's left is what choices are they making? Are they
Exactly.
choosing, are they choosing not to come to work on time? Are they choosing not to step up? And that falls in line with what you're talking about. We can't control that. We can control the first two. They have to, in my language, they have to bring the spark. If they bring the spark, I can fan the flame. If they don't have the spark, I can't deal with that, can I?
Totally agree. And this is something that, and this also brings another condition when you work with people. I'm from a generation where you were not supposed to get close to the people you work with. I mean, you're supposed to be the boss, right? And draw a line, and which is fine. I mean, some people work that way and it's fine. But I've also found that to really be able to spark that flame, you have to know people. You have
Hmm.
to understand, what they are all about and what their aspirations, what they want, and if you can help on that regard. And that requires a certain level of trust and openness and humility that has to be in place for that to happen. So again, uh, in helping people achieve their best and creating these teams, you have to assume a role of how can I say this? Uh, Create a space of intimacy, so that you can
Hmm.
read truth
Yeah.
and generate trust.
Yeah.
Uh, and sometimes, most of us, from my generation, we're not wired to do that.
Yeah.
And I also, this is something that I really think is more important. And I think this is going to be even more important now in the AI era.
Yeah, that's the missing link, isn't it? Right. It's technology's out there doing things for us, but technology, in spite of what science fiction movies are saying out there, technology is not going to replace the interpersonal interaction. And matter of fact, the interpersonal interaction is what makes the technology sail. And it just does, the ability to be able to come together on those lines. I want to key in on this word, especially intimacy, because sometimes we think of intimacy in a form of our personal relationships
Yeah.
and
No,
from a business standpoint, to me, as you were saying that, Ernesto, what you made me think about is that I need to be intimate with my employees, but all that means is, will I allow my employee to get to know me, who Mike is? And I think more importantly, will I choose to put value on getting to know my employee and making them feel that not only do I know them, but I care about knowing them. That's intimacy.
exactly. No, totally agree. And I agree that some people may not feel comfortable doing that because it's not easy.
Hmm.
But you have to understand, there is another thing that I often tell, the younger crowd, young generations that want to get promoted and start, in positions of leadership, and they want to be the big boss. I tell them, listen, if you want to get to a higher position, you have to understand that you are not going to be escalating and stepping over people to get there. You're going to be pushed up.
Oh, that's good.
So the people, your team is going to push you up. Uh, and that's the only way you're going to get promoted. So if you kind of assume that belief, so what do I need for my people to push me up? Well, I need to connect with them. I need to understand their concerns. I need to understand their aspirations. I need to be also a vehicle for them to be their best version of themselves, because in that way, not only they will be attaining that potential, but also I'm going to be progressing in the company.
Yeah, I can't think of a better way of putting a bow around this thing, Ernesto. What a great mindset to have as a leader, which is to recognize that on this escalator of growth that we're trying to achieve, you're not stepping over somebody, you were getting pushed up by people. And
Exactly.
that's why I love this opportunity. Matter of fact, if you're reading the book Regrowth, you may want to start at the last chapter about self and then jump to the front of it, because that's what regrowth is, right? It's us as individuals trying to find out how can we become our best. And there's a section in there that talks about internal barriers and looking at what are the internal barriers that are stopping us as an organization and me as a person. And man, when we can wrap our arms around that, you can scale drastically. Ernesto, if somebody wants to reach out and connect with you after this, what's the best way to find you?
Well, I have a website which is called aspenmindset1.com, aspenmindset1.com. There is right there a click to let's engage so they can get in touch with me. Of course, I'm in LinkedIn with Ernesto Gomez Arzapalo, and in Instagram I just opened up my account not too long ago, which is Aspen Mindset hyphen lower hyphen one,
Got
Aspen
it.
Mindset hyphen lower hyphen one.
Right. And I'm assuming they can get your book either off of your website or Amazon, one of those
Yeah,
two, or
correct.
something
Yeah,
along
it's
those.
in Amazon. It's also in Barnes and Noble, so you get it online, no problem.
Super. Well, this is a powerful message. that is needed today's time, and it has to do with, you mentioned a word in there, and this was ironic. This is another reason I reached out to Ernesto, because he talked about the word transformational, and that's actually my word of the year, which is transform. Because with transform, and it changes temporary. Transformational is forever, and where that comes from comes out of Scripture. It's Romans, and it says this: it says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." And that's everything we've been talking about. Is it's not what happens to you, but it's how do you renew your mind so that you can drive forward through these uncertain times. So I thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
No, it was my pleasure, Mike. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.